This is the Blockchain 360 podcast. Blockchain 360 is a podcast of interviews and discussions about the current state and direction of blockchain. Thank you for joining us today. If this is your first time listening, then thank you for coming. The Blockchain 360 podcast is produced weekly for your enjoyment, and show notes are found at our website, blockchain360.co. Come back often and feel free to add the podcast to your favorite RSS feed or iTunes. You can also follow us on Twitter at Blockchain360. All links discussed today are included in the show notes.
Hi, my name is Brian Nielsen, and I am your host here for Blockchain 360, where we discuss everything blockchain. My guest for this episode is Pietro. Pietro, I'm not going to try to say what your last name is. So what is it?
Don't worry. Marchionni, even though you would pronounce Marchionni. If you would
Marchionni. Okay, well, there you go.
The real name is tough to be pronounced.
Okay, so you're part of the Italian government.
Yes.
No, so tell me exactly what it is you do.
So our agency aim is...
This is a government agency.
Yes, it's a government agency. It's under the Prime Minister office, I would say, and our aim is to transform the government processes into digital processes. So our final objective is to make things digital and digitalize the country.
So you want to digitalize all the processes that are currently being done using legacy systems or manual?
Yes, whatever.
Okay.
Yes.
And how long has this department been around?
Quite long way. So
Really?
it's 20 years or something like that. Changed name frequently, not frequently, but several times.
And how long have you been with it?
For them, 6 months, because I was doing the same in Dubai and UAE for 10 years.
Oh, sure, of course.
So they pick me up and say, maybe
you
you
come home, you
come
gotta help us.
come back home, and you can have an interesting approach doing this for your own country. And I say, well, why not?
Yeah, why
Let's
not?
try it. Yeah, let's try it. At least it's
nationalism,
not that
that's
hot as Dubai.
So tell me, let's start with, since you brought it up, let's start with what were you doing in Dubai? Because Dubai has been an early adopter
Yes.
of a lot of things blockchain. And so what did you do there? And what was it like to transform that entire service from what it was to what it is today?
Yeah. Okay, I believe the leadership of Dubai have a great vision. They are visionaries, so their objective is to be a little bit one step ahead of the other countries in transformation of their society.
Right.
I don't say it's easy, but somehow due to the size of the country and the kind of structure, government structure, it's a little bit more easy to transform things when you're a king and says, let's do that.
Sure.
No money.
Yeah,
Things get done.
It's easier that way.
Yeah, I would say sheikh, not a king, but
Right.
represent well what they are. So, and their vision initially was to transform their country, mainly, Dubai, and it's one of the federation. And it's a
It's one of the
federation like
seven,
US,
right?
and that's 7, yes.
Right.
So it's not the biggest one, but it's the most famous, I would say.
It is the most famous. It's not
And
the richest
some-
one either.
No,
Abu
that
Dhabi
would be
is.
Abu Dhabi
Yes.
because they handle a lot of petrol. Let's say 90% of their petrol supplies
sure.
come from Abu Dhabi. Nevertheless, Dubai had the visionary sheikh that was able to lead the small, let's say, Emirati, because Emirati is
Yep.
the way they say it. It's to be not anymore depending on oil, but depending more on innovation, technology.
Well, they wanted to transform their whole
That's
society.
it. Yes,
Sure.
and they understood well that petrol has a kind of lifespan, so they want to.
Well, it will run out at some
Yeah,
point.
somehow, or maybe we'll be wise enough to decide to use another kind of means for transportation
That's
or
true.
energy production. So
I want levitation things.
yes,
okay?
that would be great, even because they're getting.
I know.
Yes. So for them, there was a first step that they call Smart Dubai. The idea is to
How
transform.
long has Smart Dubai been that concept? I mean, when did they originate that idea? Because, I mean, they've gone through phases that are not only on technology, but like the buildings there. I was there a year and a half ago, and it's just like, it's a brand new city. Everything is brand new.
Yeah.
And cranes are everywhere. I mean, you can't even imagine the construction. I mean, I try to compare it to New York, which is, 10 times the size, but they have probably the same amount of construction going on
mostly.
all at the same time. It's just fascinating what they're
Maybe
doing.
even more at the moment because they are quite
Well, I
sizable.
heard that the number of cranes in Dubai is larger than any other city.
Yes, that's what I know.
Globally.
Yeah, but these numbers are like the average. We eat chicken in two, but nevertheless you ate one, and I eat zero. So the idea is average is always a measure that cannot be taken as a real measure. But I would say it fluctuates a lot. So there is times when there is a lot of cranes, there's times when there is
Sure.
not that many,
Right.
because the economy there changes as quite frequently. They have a life cycle economies around 7 years. So
Wow,
every 7
that's
years
very
there's a
aggressive.
crisis.
Right.
And so
Sure.
price drops, cranes disappear, then
Right,
they
right.
reappear the year after, Nevertheless, steadily they are growing and they are investing a lot in growth.
Sure.
Now, considering 10% of the population is the local population, while 90% is
Is expats.
foreigners,
They're-
expats.
They're other people.
Yes.
Right.
So you may understand that there is a quite peculiar situation there.
It is.
Yes.
Actually, I don't look at it dynamically, but I look at it historically because that's really what Rome had done. Is they became where it was a divergence between the number of Roman citizens and those that weren't as a problem. And I've always had, like, the dialogues I've had with some of their citizens have been, how do you manage that? And they seem to have a pretty good approach to it, but it is a unique environment.
Yes,
when
there is
it's
a
90
difference with Rome
to 10, right?
that I would say is more similar somehow to the U.S. approach. Rome, when there was foreigners coming in, they were citizens. In Dubai, you keep being an expat for all your life.
Yeah, you have to be born into it. You cannot do
You
anything
cannot-
else. Nothing else.
But even if you're born and you are not from their family, you
That's
don't
correct,
get,
too.
Yes.
Right.
So there is no way you can get a citizenship there if you are not from one
Correct.
of their families. While U.S. has a kind of more
Right, if
open
you-
approach.
Absolutely.
Says they are welcome and they are. So I would say
Well, it's a numbers
Rome's
game,
approach
too.
is more U.S. style. I
Yes,
would say,
that's true.
Or vice versa, whatever you want to call it.
So, Dubai has taken on this new technology approach and to innovation and adoption. And so, what is it you did for the Dubai government?
So
Because
initially,
you were building, you're trying to transform that into a smart city.
yeah, I was one of the leading architects for Smart Dubai.
Okay.
So we were planning how to implement the smart city. Their vision of smart city is a little bit different than our vision of smart city. For our vision of smart city is more IoT devices running the city in a certain way. Their city is more. It was quite innovative. Data gathering, having all the data together, being able to provide common services, shared service, and to have one point of knowledge where citizens can have all their data gathered and have interoperability across entities. So in the way that one entity to have access to the data of the other entity didn't have to pray for the king to give permission. Now I had situation where the power supply company, when they asked to they were both government entities, so they both owned from the same person.
Right.
I would say. When they asked the identity management system, can we have your APIs to check the identity of the people? They said no.
Why?
I don't know. I
That's
remember
crazy.
That's crazy. So that smart city was also overcoming some of these situations where there was a kind of, as everywhere I would say, a kind of difficulty to get data cross entity. Let's go that way. So
how long were you in Dubai?
9 years.
9 years.
Yes.
So you've actually been there almost since its inception in terms of trying to adopt the technology aspect.
Yes. So
of it.
we moved from innovative website to mobile app-based services, so from e-government to m-government, from m-government to smart city, and then the latest one was blockchain.
Right.
Because the statement from the son of the sheikh that comes from the same family at the end of the story, it was we had to be 100% blockchain-enabled city by 2020. I don't think they will achieve that, but
they're getting close.
Yeah, let's say it's a good starting point.
Right.
So basically, I started to run two services there for two entities, one in Abu Dhabi, one in Dubai. For the Abu Dhabi was the health authority. When we envisioned for them...
The health authority, right?
Yes. We envisioned for them to use the blockchain to record the birth certificate and death certificate of their citizens.
Which is what governments do.
Yes.
Yes.
And it's quite immutable,
Yes.
both of them. So it's a good ledger approach for that kind of data.
No, you weren't born.
Yes.
Yes, I was.
Yes, it was. And then, from that point comes the real transformation. Then we are then applying as well in Europe somehow. And the second service was more based on, there's an entity called Mohammed bin Rashid Establishment, where they run housing services for the local people, for the Emiratis.
Right.
So somehow they give houses to Emiratis or loans for the house.
They do.
Yes,
That's
do
part
they-
of that's
yeah.
one of the benefits.
Somehow,
Yeah.
yes.
And cars.
Yes.
And education.
Yeah, a lot of things. I would say.
Yeah.
And
No, it's a
healthcare
great thing to
and-
be a citizen there.
So somehow, the decision process to give a house or to give a loan or to give a service to a citizen was following a shared decision and I won't say untrusted, but decentralized decision.
Okay.
So applying that technology was a good thing because it was one of the two key elements of decentralization, shared decision, and
Yeah.
a process that can be represented through smart contracts and so forth.
Right.
So that two elements, they gave to the city the few hints on how they can transform a lot of services.
Right.
So after that, I was moving back to Italy, and I decided to apply some of the examples to Europe, I would say.
So you were 9 years in the UAE, and you were the lead or one of the lead architects in terms of that transformation. And you decided to come back to Italy.
Yeah.
And so what are you doing now? So
Somehow
and what
the
is
same, I would say.
you're going like starting point one.
Point one. Let's say the advantage is somehow as a culture, Europe is more advanced. Don't say as a leadership level, but more countrywide level.
Sure.
So, because there is a big difference, somehow learning from what I'm hearing today, there is a big difference of the approach from US to EU on how we want to transform our services. So here services are transformed based on needs of the government entity.
Right.
There we start from citizens. So what the citizens need.
So
is
instead
this
of
technology,
top down, it's bottom
yeah.
up.
Is this technology helping to provide a better service to the citizen? Then okay, this service can be implemented through this technology because help our clients, who are the citizens,
Right.
to get a better service.
So this is a groundswell of using this technology to help the citizens engage and interact with the government more efficiently.
Sure.
So is this do you envision this to be like a phased adoption? Because not only is Italy a country, but it's a part of the EU.
Yeah, this is all coordinated in the EU. It's not just one country.
You know, it's Brussels coming in and saying like, okay, yes, no, maybe.
Let's say it would be unwise.
It'd be
in a-
unwise.
No,
That's a
unwise,
polite way
because
of
at the
saying
end
it.
we have-
It would be
We
unwise.
are union.
Right.
Somehow we have to talk together.
Right.
If 20 countries, they go in 20 different directions, you will never go and be able to talk together. It's difficult in countries, as you saw from Dubai or Italy or I guess US, to government entities to talk together. Let's think to have the same in 20 countries from 20 different government entities is going to be a nightmare. That's why the objective of EU is to give guidelines.
Right.
And it would be unwise, I would say, to not follow that guidelines because our objectives, and nevertheless, is citizens.
Right.
The citizens are European citizens. So there's a lot of moving among our countries or Europe. One citizen move to another country. Let's suppose I move to France.
It's that.
And my healthcare information is in Italy. I want to be able to share that with France.
Right.
In a trust way without having to bring
The ability to move around from countries to countries within the EU is really quite amazing.
So it's important that entities can talk together, can have a shared information, let's say, enterprise level shared information, let's say, system. And technology like blockchain would help a lot with that.
So is this an Italy initiative that is going to, they hope to actually then provide leadership for the rest of the EU?
No, it's EU guidelines
So the
joined by
EU's
you.
already created the guidelines, and
Yes.
now this is the implementation
Yes,
at
so
the
let's say a
country
vision.
level.
Nevertheless, I'll give you an example. Let's say one of the first investments that Europe is doing on blockchain is Horizon 2020 project, means let's say a research and innovation project, where we have to study social impact on blockchain on citizens, employees, corporations.
Right.
So you understand the objective is not just to implement a technology, but a change in our processes.
Right.
So if you change your processes with that technology, you have to understand first the impact. Otherwise, you may have a rejection from citizens, from government employees that they are threatened by this technology or whatever.
Right.
So it's good to have as a first start to say, let's study what would be the impact of that transformation
Right.
to the people, whether this
Sure.
person is a citizen or an employee, from government employee, clerk,
sure.
or corporation.
Right.
And then you understand how to better implement that kind of change.
Right.
So
right.
there is a process starting with a structured approach that brings you to understand how to implement from several aspects.
So what are the
and then to do
barriers
it.
that you're encountering?
I believe as here, the understanding of the difference between Bitcoin and blockchain, as usual.
Yes.
That's
Wait, there's a difference?
unfortunately, or
that's my
fortunately,
favorite
yes.
joke.
Yes.
It's like,
And secondly, I would say one of the most important is blockchain really needs a change in mindset.
how so? And what do you mean by that? I mean,
I would say I would find more difficult to explain blockchain technology to a very expert technologist,
right?
IT manager, IT expert, than to explain this to a university graduate. Because the
You
first
find
one
it more
had-
difficult.
Yes, I would say if I was unfortunate there, because I'm not that young, when we moved from programming to object-oriented programming,
Right.
you had to have a great change in your mind.
Right.
You don't have a flow, but your objects had to interact together.
Correct.
So you needed to change your way to see things, to implement that in a
Right,
different way.
right.
Blockchain is the same. You don't see things as there is a flow, there is a process, there is a decision maker, there is a trusted entity, untrusted, and you have to understand that these changes really the base approach.
Right.
And this is its power,
Sure, absolutely.
you know?
So, have you organized a team that is going to help you at least move Italy in that direction to meet this vision?
Yes, the agency, it's quite sizable. We are around 200, 250 people.
Okay, that is
That
sizable.
for the country is not a lot. Nevertheless,
It's a sizable.
It's a sizable
I mean,
entity.
when I hear about even U.S. federal ones that they're trying to do these POCs, there's not that many.
Yeah, I understand.
So
I
that's a
understand.
big group.
Yeah. And then transformation is not only through blockchain. We are not just marrying one technology. So there is a lot to transform. There is a lot of services.
What
for
other
example.
technologies are you bringing in?
You know, one of the most important elements is identity.
Sure.
So we want to have one single digital identity for the country. So we have it. So now to
You
let
do have
people
it.
use it, now we are a little bit more than 2 million users for that technology.
Okay.
That allows you to log in any government entity with one user and password.
There you go.
So proven means your identity has been proven. Now, for example, it's very interesting because private companies are looking for using the same identity management system. Why? Because they don't have
Well, it
to
solves
spend
the
a lot of
problem.
money
That's right, the
to
KYC
identify the people,
absolutely.
to maintain the password. So they understand. Forget password, forget my service. So the cost saving is huge. So it's incredible how corporations are asking to the government a kind of paid service to use that system for their own
Exactly.
advantage.
Well, why not?
So why not?
I mean,
That-
we have
they use
government-issued
my
documents
my-
anyway,
yes.
so yes. why
My
not?
card, my physical card, why
Right.
they cannot use my digital one?
Right.
So, and so forth. So we are building and
Are you
it's
going to build
there.
like biometrics into this, do you think, for the digital identities? I mean, if it's just a password, I mean, passwords can be hacked.
Oh, yes, then we
But if
have
you did a biometric,
two-level authentication,
Yes.
so you receive the usual SMS or notification and so forth. So there is, let's say, quite advanced biometrics somehow are complex as UX. The user experience on biometric is not that simple. The fingerprint would be okay.
Okay, what about an iris scan?
Do you think a lot of people would be able to do that?
I don't know,
Honestly,
looking
we
into
are.
it.
Yeah, if you see the average age of the people in Italy is quite high. So I don't think our
All right, a
60s or
fingerprint works at least,
70s.
but that's a biometric
yeah, it's
aspect.
okay.
It's a marker.
You know, at the end, the user we had to make a system that easier to use because usage of a system makes it successful. Then we can
Right,
think
right.
about advanced services. You want to log in a bank, okay, you have to use your biometrics if you want.
Right.
But now we are not using it. Now
Sure.
you're using your user password, right?
Right.
So you don't feel that need.
Right.
Why would we need to have that feature? If now logging into your bank, you don't feel that need. You know, it's good. It's good. We have a 3-level security for that identification. Maybe.
Sure.
And then you can choose as a utilization. If I log into my financial system, maybe I use the 3rd level. If I log into my account for my, let's say, certificate of birth, maybe I don't care to use the 3rd level.
Right.
Because, it's quite known.
Right.
You can go link and see my date of birth.
He was born, yeah.
Yes. So at the end, it's a kind of making things, again, for the citizens, not for the sake of technology.
Right. Well, this has all been very interesting. I want to thank you for coming on to
Thank you
Blockchain
very much.
360 and having this discussion with us and sharing with us both not only what you did in Dubai, but now what you're doing for the country of Italy.
It's great.
And thank
it's
you
good
very
to be
much.
here with you.
It's
Thank
great.
you very much.
The Blockchain 360 podcast is produced weekly. Have a question? Want us to interview someone specific? Wish to hear about a particular topic? Let us know. You can email podcast@blockchain360.co or tweet us on Twitter @blockchain360 or at our website blockchain360.co.